you want to have a nutritious meal or a delicious meal? You might say, I need a nutritious meal, but what if I said, this is a delicious, nutritious meal? You're more in. If I said to you, I want to introduce you to this person, they're really nice, versus they're delicious. Who knows what I'm talking about here? So when you learn RPM, you're going to learn that RPM is a system of thinking, that RPM is the power of language, because you can change a few words in your outcome. It'll totally change where you end up and what you're going after in your life. RPM is a visual chunking system, a way to take all that stuff you saw and group 82 things down to 4. And guess what will happen to your stress level? Through the floor. Guess what happens to your concentration ability? Through the roof. What are you going to focus on? That's another one. RPM is a focusing tool. It makes you focus on what's most important, because most people major in minor things. Am I making sense? So you got to know, why are we doing this? And I always look at 2 levels of why. Why for me? Why for the team? What's the big why? If I'm involving other people, if it's just me, then it's me. But I usually have the big why. So I said 3. Step 1 is capture. Step 2 is create the plan. There were 3 questions. What are they? Number 1 is, what do I really? Or another word for that is, what is my? Or another word for that is, what is the result? And I eventually try to get it to a result because I want to make it measurable, if at all possible. If I can't get it measurable in a short time, I want major progress on as my outcome, right? Or complete something, or whatever it is. My purpose are some key words. Write this down. Purpose, I should say activity without purpose is the drain to your life. Activity without purpose is the drain to your life. It's the drain to your wealth. It's the drain to your lifestyle. 3 questions. What's my outcome? What's my purpose? What's my why? 3rd one, what's my massive action plan? Or another, say, what do I need to what? Now you ask that question, it makes some sense. Because what to do depends on what your outcome is. Otherwise, what you're going to do is going to be based on stress, concern, fear, people interrupting you, reacting, demands. And so your life is nothing but a reaction tool. This item here, clean the house, and this thing, and this thing, and this thing, these all relate to the house. And my outcome there is, I want a magically clean house, because why? It makes me feel fully alive. And then, oh, by the way, this, and this all relates to my children. Oh, and this, and this relates to my business. And oh yeah, this is me personally. Anybody see what happens? Suddenly, 80 action items, or 12 or 30, will turn into 4 outcomes. There's something here that I want for my home. There's something I want here for my kids. There's something I want here for my business. There's something I want for me. And what that does is, now I can start to go, okay, instead of reading all these items, what do I really want for my kids? What's my outcome this week or today? And you get really, really clear about what you're after. You use this to take you to another level higher. Use this to trigger a higher vision instead of letting this limit you. And once you know what you want, that's the first question. So create a plan has 3 questions to it and 3 actions. First question is, what do I really want? How many of you would feel different in your life just by this language change? What do I have to do versus what do I really want to accomplish? Would that change the way you feel about your life? Yes or no? How does it feel with have to do? See, RPM, when you finally learn it, has many pieces to it. Above all else, it's a thinking process. And better thinking creates better results. It's that simple. So you don't have to ever use a piece of paper to think this way. From now on, all this stuff's happening, you go, what's my outcome? What am I really after? What do I want? What's the specific results? Like, what's the target? Let's chunk up. I don't ever go in a meeting with anyone. What do you think the first words out of my mouth are when I sit down in a meeting after the hellos and the proper connections? What do you say? I always say, what are the outcomes for this meeting? Because how long the meeting is based on getting the results that we're there for. It makes a much more fulfilling life. Or if you can't get in that time, you know that outcome's still not done. We got to come back and get that outcome done. How many follow what I'm talking about here? Say I. Now, when you get clear what your outcomes are, that's the first question of creating plans. Second question is, why do I want it? Why? Why is this important to me? Why is this something that really is a must for me? I don't have to do it. I want to do this. Why is this transformative? What's exciting about this to me? And almost all of you have certain key words that are triggers for you. And language shapes your emotion. I've always had this belief. If you want to be successful at anything in life, never leave the sight of setting a goal without doing something that commits you to fulfillment. If you get you're in state, right, when you do something. While you're in state, that's the time to commit yourself to something that makes you follow through. How many know what I'm talking about here? Say I. So I'd call somebody up, I'd schedule something, I'd walk in the next meeting, I'd sign up for the class, I'd enroll the guy that was going to mentor me, I'd set the meeting with a mastermind of people I met. I did something so that whatever I committed to, there was something when I went home that would pull me there. It's structure. In fact, I'll give you 5 C's to RPM just as a quick warm-up for you. How's that? If you don't remember, it'll be okay, but it'll be in your unconscious for when you go work with a coach. These are the 5 C's. Everything that comes in your mind, anything you can think of, because we're going to basically do a little mini RPM version of things right now. Anything comes to my mind, I'm here, and while you're here doing something, you're driving in your car and you think of an idea for your business or one of your businesses. Where do you put it? iPhone, where do you put it? Diary, where do you put it? iPod, iPhone. And how do you find it afterwards? How are you triggered to look at it again? So he goes back and reviews his app system. How do you do it? Right, crisis makes me go get it. How do you do it? I send an email to myself. Oh good, more emails with more to-dos, right? So I don't care what your system is, but when you have RPM, you'll have one place you put it. For right now, you need one place to put it. Now the problem is most of us have lives that if you put everything in one place, it just becomes even more overwhelming. Who knows what I'm talking about here? So the first step, I'll just tell you that, is C, is capture. You gotta capture. And the motion I do is like this. Imagine doing this, like physically capturing it, pulling it out of my head, and putting it in one place. I don't care what your one place, it's gotta be one place. Now ideally in that one place, you'd have some categories so you don't throw everything on one giant list. Does that make sense? So you might have a category for me. I have companies. So I have Robbins Research, I have Namali Resort, I have Metabolife, I have all these different companies. So I'll drop it in that area as an example. Or roles for me as a father. I don't have time to demonstrate this for you, but just know the first thing you want to do is keep it out of your head, have it in one place. Why do you want to do that? Keep lots of extra mental RAM available. When you have to keep thinking about stuff, it creates inner stress. If you know it's there, and you know you're going to look at it consistently, like you do it once a week, once a day, and you're going to review it and do something with it. Something with it might be, forget it, I'll do it later, tomorrow, but you're going to do something with it, you'll be able to let go. How many think that's pretty much something you try to do already? Most people try to do this, don't you? But the reason most people don't do it is because making lists, after a while, they stop doing. Tell me why they stop doing it. Who's made lists and then not kept the lists up, your quote to-do list? Why don't you keep those to-do lists up? Because every time you go there, they're so damn what? How many have always got more to do if you do make the list than you have time? So it inherently says, why am I doing this? RPM's a different mindset. Our mindset is, we're just first capturing it. We know we're not going to do most of this. But we need to be able to later, when it's time, decide which things are worth doing, and more importantly, what are we really after? We're going to use these to trigger us to say, all this relates to maybe something more important. How many follow the philosophical difference here? Say I. My goal is not get things done. This is not GTD. This is use the things you need to get due to stimulate a higher level of thinking of what you really want, why you want it, and become very strategic about how to get that. And many of these things may go away, or they just won't matter. But you do have to capture it, because otherwise it's in your head. So I have a lot of systems of doing it, but if you never saw me again, the most basic thing you need is one place to capture. Does that make sense? And what's step 1 of RPM? It's a C. You gotta what? Capture, which means get it out of your head, put it one place. Second thing, you gotta make sense of all this crap. And the way you do that, step 2, is you create a plan. And a plan for me has 3 parts. And the 3 parts are 3 questions that I ask and 3 actions I take. And again, you'll learn this. I'm not trying to teach this all right now. I just want to plant some seeds in your mind. Is this okay? Is this useful? So when you're going home, you got all this captured stuff you just did here, right? Now you got to start to create a plan. You got to look at all this stuff and say, okay, there's more here than I can do. So what I really need is read all this stuff and start to see, well, all these things relate to one thing. All these relate to another. If I'm a mom And I made my list, and on the list I have things like I got to pick up the laundry, I got to drive the kids to school, I've got to do this thing for the PTA, I got to clean the house, I got to run my business that I run out of the house, I got to do the accounting, I want to have to spend some time with my husband at the end of the day. Soccer mom, totally stressed out. But if I write all those things down and get them out of my head, and when I write them all down, I then start to put them together and go, this, and this all relates to my kids. This all relates to the house being great. This, and this all relates to my business. And this is about my personal life being rich and happy. I'm able to do something really nice. I'm able to go from this, which is what your capture list looks like. You'll start writing it down. You go, I got to do this, and that, and this, and this. And you start to feel good. It's out of my head. But then you go, I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this, and 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 I got to do this. I got to do that too, and that too. So step 2 is I look at my capture list and I create a plan. And the way I create a plan is I start to figure out, what do I really want? That's what the world is saying to me. That's what's in my head. What do I want? I might start to group some things together. I might start to say, let's take a look at this. You know something? Watch this. Watch this for a second. Of all the tools I have, this may be the most valuable one, ironically. Because this is the one how it all gets executed. And I don't teach it very often. So, third question is, what's my massive action plan? What do I need to do to achieve this? And when you do that, you'll take things off your capture list and you'll cross them off as they fit in, or you'll say, I don't even need to do that. So, to create a plan, there's 3 questions and then there's 3 actions. This gets a little more technical, but I think you can pick it up real easy. You take those action items and you put them in order of importance. Does that make sense? But the way I do that more quickly is I go put a star next to the ones that are the 20% that's going to give me 80% of the result. Because I know I'm not going to do all these action items. I know even if I intend to, I'm going to get interrupted 20 million times. So I want to know, what's the 20% of this list? I've got an outcome. I got a purpose. And I have this little block. The center of the target is the outcome. I see the purpose with all the juicy words. Why I'm doing this? Now I got this list of 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 things, action items. They're all related to kids, that kid outcome. I'm not going to do all those today. Which are the 20% that make the biggest difference? I star those. And guess what else I do? I figure out what's the 20%, what I call it, what are the must items. My musts are the 20% that are going to make 80% of the difference. That way, every day I can still succeed. That's why I still do my lists and most people don't. Because I don't do lists. I come up with outcomes and purposes, and I got lists within them, and they're highly prioritized with what matters. And later on, if I want to come back and do more, great. So, 3 questions, 3 actions. The actions are, star the things that are musts. 2, establish the real time. The real time is I go minimum to maximum. On each of those items, I go, how long is this really going to take? Why is that important? Because most of you overwhelm yourself and say, this will be, I just had a meeting with my team the other day, and I said, how long is this going to take? And somebody said, that'll probably take us 10 weeks. I said, okay, let's sit down and do it. Let's sit down and lay out where that 10 weeks is going to come from. And we're all done. It was about 7 hours worth of work. Because we all overestimate when it's in our what? In our head. You sit down, look at each item, and you look at the 20%, and you mark, okay, 20 to 25 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes. And by the way, at the end of the day, what do I look at? What are my start items? What's the minimum time necessary to get that result? That's what I go do. Same thing with my week. So, 3 questions. I create a visual block where this separates from everything else. Below it, I'll spell space and I'll create another block. When you learn RPM, you'll see that visually. I don't think I want to throw up for you right now. But basically, in the center of my page, I see the target of what I'm after. I write my result. To the right, I write my juice. Purpose. To the left, I put my action list. Put in order of importance, boom. Asterisk, boom. Minimum must time. I'm ready to rock and roll. Here's the third one. Leverage. Leverage is critical. You know how I get so much done? Because I don't just get it done. I know the outcome, I know the purpose, and I look for leverage. Leverage is different than delegation. What's the problem with delegation? Delegation is you have all that needs to be done, so you give it to someone else, and you tell them it needs to be done, and when they don't do it, you're pissed off. Leverage says, I can move the biggest boulder in the world with a little bit of effort if I get something I can do it with, but I'm still part of it. So leverage is, if I'm going to leverage something here with Tom, I'm going to make sure Tom understands the what? the outcome. I want to make sure Tom understands the purpose, the why, and the action. But I might say to Tom, if you can get this done without this action or better action, go for it, baby. And I want to talk to you on this date, and we got to promise and we're going to check in before it's needed. So there's no surprises. And if you're having problems, Tom, come back to me because we're partners on this. That I call leverage, different than delegation. Who sees the difference here? Say aye. So 3 questions. What creates the plan? 3 questions with a block, 3 actions. Where's my must? What's my minimum must times? Where's my leverage? And you know what I do when I have no time? There is time. I just got to leverage it. And I'm saying, I have no one to leverage it to. You know, Shane over here, right? I got all the stuff he wants to do, he can't leverage it. But Shane's answer was, hire somebody, then he thinks about what it's going to take and goes $125,000. Can't do that now. He's getting caught up in one way to get the outcome. Leverage. He goes through his list and goes, what if I got someone to do 20% of this stuff? I could spend 20 grand to get that much freedom. I could pay for it times 10. And if I'm really productive, my productivity should enhance the world, not only my clients and customers, but it should provide jobs for other people. And if there's anything you hate to do, it's because you're either ineffective at it or you don't think it's very important, but it is urgent. So you need to hire somebody for those things. And ideally, somebody who loves that job. You're never going to grow when your time is eaten up for activities that aren't that important. Activity without high levels of purpose is the drain of your fortune. Do it now. If you can't get it all now, do a part of it now. Leverage is power. A lot of people, and even a lot of businesses say, well, gosh, we train our people. Who's ever done this? You train your person, they do well for a while, and then they drop off in their skill set. I don't care if it's sales, I don't care if it's a technical skill, having to do with accounting or something on the computer. Who's experienced this with people you work with? Say aye. Now, you're highly motivated. It's your business, or you're the leader in the business, or you're the manager, or you're the head of department, or whatever. So you got a lot of drive. So you bring emotion to the table and you do enough repetition that you master it. They don't. If you give up on them, you're losing and missing out on what it takes to train someone. So here's how training looks. In the beginning of training, when you first start doing something, how fast do people learn and make shifts? Slow or rapid? Huge rapid change happens, right? There's this giant growth that occurs. Now, what eventually happens to anybody when they start to learn something, a new sport, a new business, a new relationship? What do they get to? What do you call it? Plateau. So think of it this way. Some people, their philosophy of life is dabbling. Here's what a dabbler does. They take on a sport like, let's say, tennis. And when they're brand new, they know nothing about tennis. They don't know how to hold the racket. They don't know how to swing. They don't know how to keep score. They think love is an emotion when it's a 0, right? There's nothing, right? But from not knowing anything in a short time with a little bit of training, do they get pretty damn good? Yes or no? If this is 100% mastery and this is 0, they might go to 20 or 30% growth like that within a few days, a few weeks. How many follow what I'm saying here? Say aye. Now what's interesting is, will they top out? Yes or no? There'll be a point in which they plateau. What's a plateau? It's when you're doing the same amount of effort, but you're not getting the same level of reward. You're not making the same progress. So in the beginning, how hard is it to make progress when you're a brand new company? I mean, creating a product is progress. Selling your first customers is progress. Getting your first account is progress. Pretty easy, right? When you're in a new relationship, just learning about each other and connecting and being intimate, there's progress, right? In playing tennis, taking up a sport, there's so much progress. But in every human being's experience, there's a point where you're working just as hard, but not making so much progress, and people don't like that. That's why I told you this. And what some people do at that point, if they're a dabbler, they decide to quit. This is obviously the wrong job for me. This is obviously the wrong sport. This is obviously the wrong partner. I shouldn't be in a relationship with this person. The minute they get to a point where they're not being fed, their ego is not being fed, they're not growing, they quit. And so if this was, for example, a dabbler who was in a position of tennis, they might quit tennis and now they say, you know what, I'm not a tennis player, I'm gonna do racquetball. And they get so excited about racquetball because like, oh, this is cool, look at this. Because within a few days, what happens if everybody? They start from 0 and what happens? Lots of what? Tell me, lots of progress, which feels really good, really fast. They didn't know how to racket. They didn't know how to turn. There were walls all around them and a ceiling. In a few days, bam, they're smashing off the back wall and the side wall. They're doing things Z's, and I mean, it's really cool. Plus, they get a new outfit and stuff, so they look cool. They got goggles, they join a new club, there's all this progress and stuff. So guess what? Grow, 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 grow. Everything's great, 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 great. But eventually, who knows what happens? Eventually, they hit a plateau. And guess what? Rather than training themselves further for mastery, what do? They say it's the wrong sport. Are most people's happy? Is their happiness tied to the quality of life they really have? Because we're a world now that's shallow. Most people are dabblers. They try something for a while, doesn't work out, they do something else. Now, you wouldn't be in this room for 5 days if you were a dabbler, but how many of you got to deal with some of these dabblers out there? Say aye. Dabblers are the people you want to make sure you keep off your team or get off quickly, because they're going to quit anyway. And the time, energy, and effort it takes to train a dabbler is the same energy you could have a platinum player. And we're going to show you some ways to do that later on. But let me show you another path for a second before we show you the rest of the training effect. Let's take the path of what I call a stressor. Here's the stressor's philosophy. I find the way. Who can relate to this? Say I. I'm going to find the way. I'm going to achieve it. So they take up a sport like tennis, and it goes like this, and they're doing really, really well, and it's going really good, but eventually, boink, they hit a plateau. Here's the difference. Does the stressor quit? Ever quit? Yes or no? Absolutely not. What does the stressor do when it doesn't work out? What do? Do they settle for it? What if they actually get a little worse for a short time? What happens? They really get stressed when they go, screw this, I'm going to find a way, I'm going to break through, I'm going to learn a book, I'm going to find someone, I'm going to coach, I'm going to make this thing happen, I'm going to find a way, I'm going to find whatever it takes to make this thing happen. Poosh! And they break through, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, they break through, ladies and gentlemen. Who knows what I'm talking about here? Say I. And by the way, they break through, and all of a sudden they start making progress, and they're so happy, and all of a sudden, guess what happens? Boink. And they go, damn! How could that happen? I've been working my tail off. I just had this breakthrough. I just worked through this thing. I just fought through it. But by the way, do they hit another plateau? Yes or no? So, what happens here? Do they give up? Do they quit? Do they go, it's the wrong sport? What does the stressor do? They stress out, shit, I'm gonna find a way, I'm gonna make this thing happen, I gotta make this thing, come on, figure something out, let's find this thing, I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna make more calls, I'm gonna make this thing happen. And all of a sudden, eventually, what happens? Poof! Ladies and gentlemen, they break through again, come on now. And by the way, they eventually get where they want to be. The problem is, they're so stressed out by the time they get there, they're so exhausted, they can't enjoy it. Every person in this room who described failure described it for the following reasons. And I gave all the reasons. Time, money, network we don't have, people we don't have, not the right management, not the right people, right? We don't have the resource. And they went through this whole thing. I said, what all these things, not of Supreme Court justices, what they all have in common is you're all saying we didn't have the resources to succeed. Money is a resource. Time is a resource. Technology is a resource. People is a resource. Experience is a resource. Supreme Court justices are so many resources, right? And they all agreed. I said, here's the only problem. I said, in my experience, and you correct me if you're wrong, and I want an honest answer. When we get out of ourselves and we look at human beings and their ability to succeed or fail, how many people you've ever met who did not have the resources and they beat somebody who had all the resources? I said, resources, when you look at the most powerful and effective people in history, were never the problem. They didn't have the resources, but they got them. How do people get resources when they don't have them? The answer is they're resourceful. The ultimate resource is resourcefulness. That's what makes someone successful. And here's what's great about resourcefulness. Who has it within them? Who? Who? Every human being, but the question is whether you access it or not. I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't be a racquetball player. And if I was going to show you as an example, you grab this real quick. If they've gone out and they've made all this progress, they're real happy. They go, they're growing. Boink, they hit this plateau. Wrong sport. Not a tennis player. Go up like this, boink, racquetball, all of a sudden, working hard, not getting a result, wrong thing, wrong relationship, wrong job, wrong mission. So then they go out and play golf and they go, boom. They don't even get the progress. And they go, I didn't need to use the F word that many more times in my life, right? Different piece. Now that's what a dabbler does. And by the way, dabblers by their nature are unhappy. Think about this. Even with all the economic challenges that exist, most people in North America for sure have a better quality of life than 95% of the planet. 95% of the planet is living on what? How much? 2/3 of the planet, I should say, is living on $2 a day. Your worst nightmare is somebody else's greatest dream. Most of the planet's greatest dream. Your idea of economic downfall is somebody's dream. That's the truth. And so what happens though is, would you agree we have more choices, more freedoms, more opportunities today than any time in human history? Yes or no? Is it the single most important skill in life? We hate the word selling, so I'll give you a word that it really is, that doesn't have the negative connotation. It's the word that all leaders have. What would that word be? Influence. What changes companies is leaders. The only way to change a company is leadership. If I want to change a company that I own and I want to make a shift in that company, the number one thing I'm going to do is shifting leadership. That might be taking leaders to a different level. That might bring new leaders in. That might be new leaders of new voices, with new perspectives, with new skill sets, new directions. But we need to take things to another level. Leaders solve problems and leaders maximize resources. If you're going to solve problems, you can't do it yourself or it would already been solved. You have to get others to help you to do it. That requires influence. True? If you're going to get people to maximize resources, that requires influence. If you're going to get people to partner with you, provide you resources, capital, suppliers, anything, that requires influence. If you're going to have an impact on your kids or your community or the world, that requires influence. There is no more important skill of leadership than influence. And yet most of us think of it like selling, and as a result, we don't master influence. So I'm not here today to try and get you to become a master of influence in 45 minutes or so am I chatting with you here because we have so many of the speakers. This is the area of life I am most focused on. Because I know that if you can't influence, you can't lead. But if you can influence powerfully, intelligently, with integrity, there's no limit to whatever you can envision and what you can make real. And if your influence becomes not just you as the influence, but you're able to influence systems, people, company, culture. If you can turn other people into influencers, now whatever you vision about can be made into a reality. And so as a skill of influence, we got to ask ourselves, how many agree leaders are what change companies? Raise your hand if you agree with that. Say aye. And leaders' number one skill is influence. If you agree, say aye. But then the question becomes, how do you influence? Let me show you in 2 seconds flat why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. I call it the success cycle. Real fast. Draw yourself 4 squares, put them up on the screen here. You'll see, as I do this, take a quick look. You'll notice you've got the word potential up in the left-hand square. Up in the right-hand square is the word action. Bottom right is the word results. Bottom left is the word belief, or another word for that would be a sense of certainty. Potential, action, belief, results. And notice there's arrows in a clockwise fashion where they just keep feeding each other over and over and over again. So again, it's potential, action, results, belief, or another word for that would be certainty. Now, did you ever notice how rich people tend to get richer and poor people to get poorer? And I don't just mean rich in financial terms. I mean people that are rich emotionally. Did you ever notice how happy people tend to get happier and depressed people tend to get more depressed? How many found this to be true? Say aye. It's because of the power of momentum and what I'm about to show you. So let me show you something here. What's the potential of any human being? You tell me, quick. Unlimited. Do most people's results reflect that true potential? Yes or no? No way. Why? Because most people aren't taking enough what? But is it possible to take a lot of action and still get lousy results? What if you got a salesman that works for you and they walk out and they knock on 100 doors and they say, you wouldn't want to buy anything from me, would you? Or they don't say that verbally, but they say it non-verbally. Is that going to affect their results? Yes or no? So it's not enough even to take enough action, because when we believe it's not going to work or we're uncertain, does that affect how much of our potential we tap? Yes or no? See, if you don't think it's going to work, You're not going to put out a bunch of your energy when you think it's going to fail. And by the way, when you're not sure, you tap little potential. Do you take little or a lot of action? When you're not sure, when you think it's not going to work, do you take massive action or little action? Now, when you take little potential with little action, what kind of results do you get? Little lousy results. And when you get lousy results, what does that do to your belief? You go, see, I told you it wasn't going to work. Told you it was a waste of time. And then, by the way, when you have less belief, how much more potential do you take? More or less? If it's possible, you tap less potential, more or less action. Less. And what happens to your results? They get even what? And now they got worse results. What's that do to your belief? And by the way, now you see the current economy. Isn't it true? Everybody out there is going, oh my God, the results are so bad, it's going to get worse in the future, so I better pull in my horns, there's less potential, so I'm not going to push as hard. I'm not going to take much action. Oh my God, I'm getting lousy results with little potential action. Oh my God, it's going to get worse. That's what creates a recession, depression, whatever you want to call it. How do you change that? Now, strategic major work, or you make the final thing, you're going to own it more. So what I would do with people is I'd say, simple. Here's your problem. I want you to write down what the problem is and describe it in 2 sentences max. This is your memo. 2 sentences, crystal clear that anybody will understand it. If you have to write more than 2 sentences, you have to tell them a paragraph, the question doesn't work. It has to be maximum 2 sentences, ideally 1, so crystal clear anybody can understand it. That's number 1. So you write that down. You write down, define the problem with precision. Describe the problem or the request. And sometimes it's not a problem, sometimes it's a request. Can we turn the air conditioning up? Can we turn it down? Can we have lunch at whatever time? Can we do this? Can we do that? Whatever the request may be. So they write it down. Then the second thing I have them do is describe 3 solutions to their request or problems. 3, and I use keywords, 3 cost-effective, intelligent, viable solutions. Might be viable, time viable, resource viable, whatever the case may be, viability. So what are 3 intelligent, practical, viable solutions that you believe we could implement, to solve this, or to meet this need? By the way, why do I have them come up with 3? Someone tell me why. 1 choice is no choice. 2 choices is a dilemma. Until you have 3 choices, you're not at choice. That's my rule in life. You may not like all the choices. Whenever you think you have 1 choice is no choice. If you got 2, you're in a dilemma. There's always at least 3 choices. Plus, I'm making that person become a problem solver. If I solve the problem, they'll just have a new problem for me to solve. But if I can teach them to be a problem solver, the game changes. How many follow? Now, sometimes this is less efficient, but with a mass audience, it was very efficient. And then they turn that in, and then I then have a choice. I can now respond back by saying, circle, I accept your request, or I think solve the problem, we'll do it with your number 1. Or I could modify it, I'm willing to do that, but I think we need to do this and this is the way to do it. Or I could reject it and tell them why. And then we'd have this communication. It was very efficient. This is very different than, tell me what you think we should do in a suggestion box. So now, tell them, because their blueprint says I should be the skinniest thing on earth, and I'm not skinny enough. Am I making sense? When your life conditions don't match your blueprint, you're going to have pain. But here's when you suffer. When I ask people, who here has been through the dark night of the soul? Who's been here in a situation where you feel like life isn't worth living? Or you feel like a pain that just will never go away? And a lot of people write down those experiences, like Joaquin. So you begin to understand what the issue is I'm talking about here. Joaquin, if you recall, was in a situation where this man felt like there was no reason to live. He couldn't work, he couldn't do anything, his life was worthless. Why did he think that? Because he had a blueprint. And his blueprint said, I need to be an NBA basketball player, at least a professional basketball player. I need to be able to make money and have this great lifestyle because that's what makes me worthwhile as a human being. That's what makes my family respect me. My mother, my uncles, my aunts. I'm the successful one in the family and I make the money. I support everybody. He's a good man. He didn't come just to be successful. He took care of his mother, his family. He tried to be an inspiration for people. Joaquin Hawkins is a man who was always going out on his free time and training kids and showing them the pathway to freedom. How they could play basketball and get free like he did and get out of the inner city. So this man is not a selfish man, but he knew this is the way to be worthwhile. This is the way to be able to give to people. This is the way to take care of your family. And all of a sudden, one night, what happened? That way was taken from him. He has a stroke. And in the middle of the night, his life conditions make it impossible to be who he has to be, or he feels like he's worthless. You get it? We have an identity. We have a story of how we're supposed to be. And if life somehow gets in the way of that story, we feel pain. But if we feel we have no control, that's when we go into suffering. See, it's one thing to say my life doesn't match my blueprint and I gotta lose weight. That might stress you out. Or my life doesn't match my blueprint. I'm not in a relationship, I gotta get in one. That might motivate you even. You might not like it, but you're gonna find a way to get in one. Or my career doesn't match how I should be. You could change it. But when you start believing that your life doesn't match your blueprint and you have no control to change it, you're helpless, that's when people suffer. And so this week for your breakthrough, it's a chance for you to start to take a look at your blueprint anywhere you're really having pain. Hey, look, if you're doing great in some area of your life, celebrate it, of course, and I'm sure there are many areas you are. But life is really a series of growth spurts. I mean, two things in life make you feel alive: growing and giving. And what's really wonderful about this man, Joaquin, is he was constantly growing, trying to get better, trying to be a better teammate, a better basketball player. Think about it. When he didn't make the teams and he didn't make the NBA, he didn't give up. He worked even harder. The guy was always striving to become something. And he became it, and he achieved it, and then life took it from him. Isn't that the common denominator with so many of the people in the stories of this 6-part series that you saw, these 6 specials? I mean, Frank and Kristen had a blueprint of what life was supposed to be about. We're supposed to get married and have children, and we're gonna have our own business. And all of a sudden, life doesn't match the blueprint. And suddenly, there's depression. Because in their case, they said there's nothing we could do. But they were wrong. They were wrong because they discovered, and Frank discovered, I can make a difference to my wife. The chair, even though I didn't create this and didn't ask for it, this chair does not define me. I can become more than I was before. I can have the impact with my wife. I can have children. We had to change his blueprint because we couldn't change all the conditions of his life. Does that make sense? I couldn't get him to physically walk again. Maybe someday he will, but we can't count on that. What we gotta count on is that he can be fulfilled by seeing he isn't helpless. And I did that through a series of experiences that violated what he thought he couldn't do. The same thing was true with almost every one of the people we worked with at some level. And in Joaquin's example, it was also true. Joaquin said, well, I can't ever have this quality of life again because I'm not a professional basketball player. And he was locked into that mindset, and all of us get locked at times. But to his credit, to a system of steps, we were able to break him out of that. We were get him to see that he isn't helpless. Because here's your choice. Watch this now. If you're suffering, if you're in pain, your life doesn't match how you think it should be, and you think you're helpless to change it, now you have only 3 choices. And then answer for a moment, why aren't you happy with that area of your life right now? Why specifically today are you not happy with that area of your life at this stage of your time of your life? Again, you can stop this and write it down. Might be useful for you. Or if you're going to keep it running, stop it and you'll turn it right back on and I'll kick into it. Do that now. Or if you kept it running, then just I'll give you what happens. I have people write this down and they don't like this exercise so much. I don't like my body, or I don't like my finances, I don't like my career, or I don't like the person I'm in a relationship with, I don't like myself the way I'm in relationships. Why? And they write it all down. Have people share back and forth. I call on people, and the lesson's pretty clear. I tell people in advance, here's the formula for unhappiness. I'll show you before you do anything else. When your life conditions, the way you're living your life today, does not match, it doesn't equal your blueprint, your story of how it's supposed to be, then you're gonna have disappointment, frustration, or pain. If your life is way different than the way you think it's supposed to be, you can have enormous pain. If it's a little different, you might feel stressed. Make sense? So people stand up and they say, tell me, what's the area you're not happy with? The person says, well, I'm really not happy with my finances. And I go, why? And they say, because I'm doing worse now than I was 5 years ago. I made mistakes in the market, and at this stage of my life, I should have this much money, and I don't have it, and I don't know how to change it. and it's making me crazy. And why are they crazy? You say, well, because they don't have their economic needs met. No, you can not have your economic needs met and you can still be okay. But when you have an idea, this is what my need is, and I did the wrong thing, my life doesn't match how I'm supposed to be, that's when people get a little crazy. See, think about it. If you grew up taking care of folding your own clothes, making your own meals, going to the store, doing the grocery shopping, cleaning the bedroom, cleaning the house, vacuuming, taking out the trash, and you did that your whole life, then if you have to do that later on, you don't feel like you have economic pain because you don't have a maid. But if you grew up in an environment where everything was done for you, you never have to work, and now suddenly you have to work incredibly hard to just pay enough money to pay your bills, and all of a sudden food is building up and the house is dirty and your clothes aren't folded and nothing matches, you might find yourself really angry and frustrated because you have a different story about how life's supposed to be than how it is. Someone else will say, well, I'll tell you why, because I'm in a situation now where, I'm 30 pounds heavier than I should be. Should be is the key word. There are people in all cultures who love being big. There are people that will walk around and someone else might think they're massively overweight, but they'll go, I own this, honey, and they really, truly, they match their blueprint. Big is beautiful, because their idea is big is beautiful. I'm big, that's beautiful, matches my blueprint. Rock and roll, I'm happy as can be. Somebody else can look like a twig and be stressed out saying, I hate my body. If you find your passion, you're gonna have this tremendous energy. It's sustainable energy. But momentum requires you always do the next thing to keep the momentum going. And the reason you get yourself in a passionate place is so that you change your life, and the only thing that changes your life is making a decision. So while you're in this passionate state, that's where you make decisions. You don't make decisions when you're like, oh, I don't know, what do you think? All right, let's decide. If you make a decision in a state without momentum, if you make a decision from a place where there's no passion, you are not going to get momentum. It'll kill momentum. It's decide, commit, and resolve. Some of you, in the past, you've gotten momentum, you've gotten passionate, you've even made a decision, but a decision is the first step. Decision is like a war. I gotta do this or that. All right, I'm gonna make myself do this. But commitment is when you now, after you've decided, you commit to do this for the long term. Whether it's hard or easy, doesn't matter. You're doing this. It takes it from this moment and it carries it into the future even when things are difficult. And the third state is resolve. Resolve means it's done. It's like, it doesn't even if you took action, it's done inside you, so it's done out there. There's no question whatsoever. Then once you decide, the only way the commitment and the energy and the momentum continues is if you take immediate, massive what, my friends? Massive what? Write down in your notes, massive action is the cure-all. Massive action is the cure-all. If you're having a difficult time with something, your relationship isn't where you want it to be, your finances are not where you want to be, your body's not where you want to be, your business is not where you want to be, you need to take massive action. And if that doesn't work, try something else. If that doesn't work, try something else. Keep going with massive action and you will find the way, because it will give you momentum. If you want to grow a business, I can teach you a million strategies that will change you overnight. And if I get you to use a strategy and grow your business 30% like that, you are going to get so excited that your story about your business will change, won't it? You're like, I can rip this open. I'm going to make this thing 100% more profitable. That's why 80% of those people, I can grow them 30 to 130%. Because once I get into momentum, people's story changes. And when their story changes, the third and most important thing changes, their state. Because that's what really changes it all. The ultimate question I'm always asking is, how do I help people to break through? The question is, what are you breaking through to? In essence, all of us at some level to feel alive have to always feel like we're growing. When people ask me, what does it take to be happy? I always tell them one word, progress. Progress equals happiness. Even if you're not where you want to be yet, if you're on the road, if you're improving, if you're making progress, you're going to love it. You're going to feel alive. On the other hand, it doesn't matter how successful you are, if you stop growing, you start dying inside. Now, how does this relate to this session on breakthrough? Well, I'll say it's really simple. If you and I want to know what it takes to be happy, we have to understand what is our current blueprint of how our life's supposed to be. Now, what do I mean by blueprint? Well, we have a story in our head of how life's supposed to be. Some people's story is you work hard in school, you become really great, you're a nice person, you're a good person, and then you grow up and you take care of yourself and you find the ideal man and you fall in love and you have a white picket fence and you have 3 perfect children and you live happily ever after. Somebody else's story, the old story was you work really hard in school, you excel in college, you go to work for a big corporation, and you move up through the ranks until you're the president or chairman of the company and you become successful and respected throughout life. These are some old stories. Obviously, the stories that we hear today of what people's lives are supposed to be like are completely diverse. We no longer have these little archetypes, but one archetype still seems to remain. And that archetype is, in order for you to really feel like you're enough, many people believe they have to achieve an enormous amount. They may do it in different ways. They may do it by building a company and taking it public when they're 27 or 25 years old, or they find and create a new technology, or they become a very special doctor. But we live in a culture in the West that teaches people that you're not enough unless you do something really special and unique, and we define special and unique in interesting ways. A school teacher is not special and unique. A mother who stays home with her children day and night, sculpting their minds, their bodies, their souls, and their future is not special. We live in a world today where we treat teachers like they're nobody and pay them accordingly, and we wonder why our children seem to have challenges in learning and growing or being engaged in school. When we spend thousands of dollars on some item like a computer, but what we look at overall, we invest in for the teacher and for that person who's the personal connection with them is so small. We live in a society where many women look down and say, well, you're just a housewife, you're just a mother. See, some of the pain we have in our society is not because there's one right or one wrong approach, but because we try to make everybody fit into some particular approach to life. Here's what's going to make you happy or make you unhappy in life. It's real simple. Let's do a quick test. If you're in a situation right now where you look at your life, I know there's an area of your life that you probably feel pretty darn good about. Even if you're not happy with your finances, I bet you feel damn good close to your kids. Or if you're not close to your kids, maybe you don't have any kids, maybe you feel really good about your career. If you're doing not so good in your career, maybe you got a really great body that you've trimmed down or strengthened up, or you really shaped yourself the way you want, muscularly, or in the way you look. Or if that's not happening, maybe you feel a really special connection with God, or really close to your mother or father or your family, whatever. Almost everybody has an area of their life they feel really good about if they're honest and if they're fair to themselves. What's an area of your life you really feel happy about? And I want you to think about it for a moment, truthfully. What's an area in your life today that if you wanted to be happy about it, you really could feel proud about it? You could feel like it's an area you're doing darn well in. And if you're really hard on yourself, there's still an area. What's an area? I want you to think of it right now. And I want you to think of that area, whether it's your body or your finances or your career or your intimate relationship or your relationship with your kids, your relationship with your creator, whatever it is. I want you to think about, why are you happy with that area of your life right now today? Why are you happy with that area of your life right now today? Really think about it. If you were in a seminar with me, I'd have you write this down. And if you can put me on hold here for a second, because I'd like to reveal to you what the formula is for happiness. And if I say there's a formula for happiness and here's what it is, you're going to go, yeah, sure, that's what he says. But if you put down the answer and we can see the formula is real without me telling you what it is, you get to look at your own life and say it matches. You're going to know this is right. So you could stop this right now if you want, put me on hold, and just write down what's an area of your life you're really, really happy about, you're really pleased with, or you could be if you wanted to focus on it. And why are you happy with that part of your life right now? Even if you're not happy with everything, what's the area you're happy with and why? Put me on hold right now, or if you're not going to do that, just think for a moment. Why? Specifically, be real. Why? Now, when I ask this, if you turn me back on now, if I ask this of an audience, I'll have people write this down for a few minutes and I'll call on people and I'll say, share with the person next to you first. What are you happy about and why are you happy in that area? And be specific. And after they share, I'll have people stand up, I'll call on a variety of people and I say, ma'am, tell me, what are you happy about? And she'll say, well, honestly, I'm really happy with my body. She goes, I never thought I'd say that, but I used to be so unhappy with it. And I did some things, I pushed myself through, and now I exercise regularly. And I'm not perfect, but I feel fit, I feel strong, I feel energetic. And that's really, it just feels good to me. Now, I say to everybody, I'm now going to show you what the formula for happiness is. And it's real simple. I want to reveal it to you so you don't ever forget it. Whenever you're happy with an area of your life, it's because right now, your current life experience, I call it your LC, your life conditions, the conditions of your life conditions in that area match or are equal to your blueprint, your story, your belief about how life should be in that area. So this woman says to me, I'm really happy with my body because it's not perfect. Her blueprint is I don't need to be perfect, but it's so much better than it was. I'm fit and I'm strong and I have this energy. Her mental blueprint says I should be fit, strong, and have energy. I don't need to be perfect, but I should be that way. Well, when my life, my body matches how I think it should be, I feel good about my life. I'll ask somebody else. I'll say, tell me an area you're happy with. Someone else will say, well, I'm really happy with my career. And why? Well, I'm doing better than I even thought I would be. I'm ahead of the schedule of where I hoped I'd be at this stage. I'm working at this level in this company, and I have these skills and this ability, and it's even better than I thought. Well, once again, listen, this person's happy with this area of their life because their current life conditions in the area called their career are even better than they expected they would be, better than their blueprint, better than their belief of how it should be. If it's really better, you tend to be over the moon. Well, one woman would say, I gotta tell you, I said, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my whole life. How come? She goes, because I have this man in my life and I'm in love with him and he loves me and I can be myself with him. And we have this incredible intimacy and this passion and we want to be with each other all the time and I never get bored with him. Well, what's her blueprint? You want to be with somebody that you can have total intimacy with, somebody who you love and loves you. Those are part of her rules, her beliefs of how it should be. She said, it needs to be, I never want to be with anybody else. I want to be with them every moment. Her blueprint about how life should be and the way she lives, her relationship's even better than she hoped. When it's better than you hoped, you're going to be totally excited. So think about this then. What's an area you're not happy with? Let's see if we can find the formula for unhappiness. If the formula for happiness is to be able to meet your expectations or exceed them, that really makes you excited, but to be happy, you gotta at least meet it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you generally are meeting what you expect you want from your life in that area, feel good. Life conditions match blueprint, feel good. So what makes you feel bad? What creates pain, stress, frustration? Real easy way to figure it out. Answer this question. What's an area of your life you're not happy with? I mean, be honest with yourself. And even if your life is great in all kinds of ways, I'm sure there's an area you'd like to improve. Anybody who's honest, if they're doing great in their career, very often they don't take care of their body so much. If they're really focused on their body, very often they find themselves in a position where they're not spending enough time with their kids. Or if they're spending time with their kids, their intimate relationship's not doing so well. Because it's the nature of human beings to focus on areas they feel comfortable with and strong in and give those time. And the areas they don't feel so strong and they go, I don't have time for it. What they're really saying is, I don't feel very competent in that area. So what's an area of your life that you are not as happy with? I mean, it's healthy, honestly, to look at areas and say, I don't like it, I want more. This whole concept of a breakthrough is about how do I close the gap between where I am right now and where I want to be. That's what we're here to do. It's like, here's where I want to be, here's where I am. It's healthy to see there's a gap. That makes me have this hunger, this drive to grow, to feel alive, to expand as a human being. So is it your body? Is it your finances? Is it your career? Is it your spiritual life or lack thereof in terms of feeling connected in that area? Is it your kids? Right? What's the area? What's the area that's not where you want it to be? Choice one, blame something. And that's what Joaquin did, if you recall. He blamed his coach, he blamed what happened to him, and of course these things were outside his control. But he blamed his coach, and a big part of the healing, if you watch this session, was bringing his coach in and getting him to see, hey, you know what, all that anger, all that resentment inside of you, Joaquin, A, it's not based on the truth, and B, like Nelson Mandela said, having resentment in your soul is like drinking poison and hoping that your enemy will die. It doesn't work that way. And when Joaquin was able to break out, his breakthrough was a change in perception, to realize this coach wasn't stopping me. I just felt like I lost everything, and so I don't know how to change it, so I'm looking for something to be mad about, someone to blame, so I don't have to blame myself, or I don't have to feel so helpless. Because when you're angry, you don't feel so helpless. You feel strong for the moment, even though it's a fake strength. When he was able to make that breakthrough, he could stop blaming. Because these are your three choices. When life doesn't match how you think it should be, blame something. An event, someone else, or yourself. As we talked about earlier in this series, blame games just destroy you. There's no progress when you blame. For the moment, you feel okay, but nothing changes. What are your real choices? You only have two choices in life. If life doesn't match your blueprint, you either have to change your life. That is, you gotta say, you know what, my body isn't there, I'm gonna go work out. My relationship isn't there, I'm gonna change it. You know, I'm not making what I gotta make, I'm gonna retool, I'm gonna get a new skill, I'm gonna go back to school, I'm gonna start a business, I'm gonna do something. You have to do something to change your life. Or, in order for you to be happy, if you can't change your life, you're gonna have to change your blueprint. Usually in life, it requires a little bit of each. Does that make sense? And if you change your life and change your blueprint, you can have an extraordinary life. And what you witnessed this man do was, once he let go of his anger and his denial, once he started to look at things, he began to find, by spending time with his family, that he was worthwhile being loved whether he played basketball or not. Of course, professional basketball was no longer a part of it. And we got to get Joaquin to shift that. And Joaquin is a metaphor for all of us. Because all of us are going to have times in our life when what we want or think life should be like isn't going to match how life really is. Those moments, if we blame, our life goes into pain. If we change, we can change our life and match our blueprint. But we have to also know when it's not within our control. And that's how we're able to make a shift and change what our story is for our life, what our expectations are, not by lowering them, but by changing what that model really is. I hope this makes sense to you. I'll give you a great example. Years ago, I do a lot of work with business people, celebrities, people of all kinds of walks of life. And I was dealing with a group of people, and they knew a very, very powerful celebrity. And to give that person privacy, I won't tell you too many details, so you can't figure out exactly who it is, but it would be a person who was very successful as a woman, who was extremely attractive by cultural standards, a woman who's had a lot of dear friends, a lot of deep respect. So great skill, great ability, extremely talented, quite attractive, quite wealthy in financial terms, and lots of great friends. This would be, for most people's idea, the ultimate blueprint. If your life matches that description, you must have an incredible life. But ironically, this particular individual, as famous as they were, was depressed all the time. They had seemingly everything, and yet the person was depressed. How do you get depressed when you're smart and you're strong and you're beautiful and you got great friends and you're rich and you're famous? Well, it's real simple. People said, I don't know what it is. Everyone's tried to help her. She's been through counseling. She's got all these different drugs. Nothing's working. She's taking antidepressants and she's still depressed, which is not uncommon, by the way. Because if you change the way you feel physically, but you still see your life doesn't match how you think it should be at some level, and you feel like you're helpless to change it, you're going to be depressed. So I said, bring her to me. I said, I can help her. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but I absolutely can help her. Well, how do you know that, Tony? Because I already know what the problem is. I know if someone's depressed, it's because they feel helpless because their life doesn't match how they think it should be. I just don't know what her blueprint is, but we'll find out what it is, and we'll either help her change her life, or we'll help her change her blueprint, or both. Long story short, and very quickly, I'll tell you the core of it. She came to me and she spent maybe the first half an hour telling me, apologizing, saying, I know I should be happier. I know it's silly for me to be depressed. I don't know why I'm so depressed. I know I should be grateful for what I have, and I am grateful. And it was all these reasons why she knows she should feel good, but still didn't. And I tried to finally explain to her, listen, I don't care about that. I care about you. The fact that you're not happy has nothing to do with what you have or don't have. The fact that you're not happy is that your life doesn't match the way you think it should be. You have some idea of how you think it should be. And worse, if you're this depressed after all this time, you feel like you can't do anything. You have no power to change it. You feel helpless. And she looked at me in a certain way, and I said, so what is that? What did you want your life to be like? She goes, well, it sounds stupid. I said, it's not going to sound stupid to me. She said, well, I don't know, I just always, since I was a little girl, dreamed that I would be married and I would have 3 basically perfect children, and they would love me totally, and I loved my husband, he loved me, and I said, okay, so how's that working for you so far? And she said, well, I think you know, she's a pretty famous person. She said, I'm divorced twice, I have no children, and I'm now X age. And to give you a clue, that age would be an age where having a child, your own natural child at least, barring a medical miracle, is not going to happen. So I said to her, well, why don't you just adopt? She goes, no, that's not it. And so what I had to dig under is, remember we talked in one of the earlier sessions about there's the surface problem and then there's the deeper desire or need. So I said to her, I said, well, what if you couldn't have the husband but you could have the kids? And she smiled, she said, I'd take that. I said, well, why not adopt a kid? She goes, no, it has to be my own blood children. So I kept digging to find out what was behind her blueprint. Because your blueprint is just a projection of what you think you need to be happy. But as human beings, we're notoriously ineffective at knowing it's going to make us happy. So much of what we think we're going to make us happy, we get there and we go, is this all there is? So many things that we think are going to make us miserable and we can never deal with, we go through it and we can handle it. We're not good at projecting these things. All kinds of studies will show this. So I said to her, well, what are you hoping to get from these 3 children? Why do they have to be your blood children? And she finally said, well, if they're my blood children, I know they'll always love me. They'll never leave me. What was she looking for? Unconditional love. She had this big blueprint that said White House, picket fence, 3 children, perfect husband, all these different things. But what was behind that was a need to feel like she could have love that would be certain and wouldn't go away. So I can help her meet that need. So I said to her, I said, well, maybe one reason you don't have a husband is because every time you look at one, you're trying to figure out if he's going to get you those 3 kids in time and how that's going to happen. And maybe he feels a little stressed when you're looking at him this way because he can feel what's going on behind your bed, even if he doesn't know what the words are. And she started to laugh. She goes, I guess I've probably been that way a good portion of my life. And she goes, people wonder, why I'm so uptight. I said, you're uptight because you felt like you're running out of time trying to meet some picture. But I said, all you really want is love. I said, don't you have a lot of love in your life? Tell me about your friends. And gradually, I got her to start seeing this love that she was trying to get was already here. It didn't match the picture. Maybe we could paint a new picture of what life could really be like and make sure that picture met her deepest needs. That's basically what we did with Joaquin. Joaquin wanted to be a professional basketball player because he loved basketball, yes, but also because he wanted to be that man who was a leader. He wanted to be the man who was the good man. He wanted to be the one who brought energy to people. He wanted to be the man people would look up to. He wanted to be the man who could take care of his family in style, all of his family, not just his daughters and his wife, but other people as well.